I'll call the meeting to order of the Upper Big Blue Natural Resource District. Open Meeting Act. The public notice has been published in the York News Times on December 14th of 2023. The Open Meeting Act is posted in the back of the room by the door. The reminder, all cell phones should be silenced during the meeting. Please be aware this meeting is being recorded. When speaking, the desktop microphone button must be depressed. This ensures that your comments are recorded in their entire context. Recording becomes part of the public record along with written board minutes in accordance with state statute. Roll call.
Bethune.
Here.
Anthony Bohati. Jeffrey Bohati.
Here.
Richard Bohati.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
Groats.
Here.
Huttershell.
Here.
Keener.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
News.
Here.
Adi.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Siebert.
Here.
Staley. Here. Weiss.
Here.
Yates.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Consideration of director's request for excused absence. I have none. Public comments. Anyone may comment on any matter that is not on this agenda. However, no board action can be taken till the following board meeting, according to the Nebraska Open Meeting Act, unless the board declares an emergency. Please hold comments on any listed item until it is considered. Adoption of agenda.
Move to adopt.
Second. Roll call.
Jeff.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Groats.
Yes.
Huttershell.
Yes.
Keener.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Adi.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Siebert.
Yes.
Staley. Yes. Weiss.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Approval of minutes of the November 16th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting. So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Groats.
Yes.
Huttershell.
Yes.
Keener.
Yes.
Miller.
Abstain.
News.
Yes.
Adi.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Siebert.
Yes.
Staley. Yes. Weiss.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
15-1.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda, but the USGS project update. Jenny McGuire.
Yeah, we have Jenny McGuire here from USGS. She's going to give us an update on where they're at with our groundwater monitoring wells that we use. So we'll just turn it over to Jenny. So.
Okay, is that mic on? Is the green light on? Push the button.
There it's green.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. So, this is gonna, because I have brought my own stopwatch. It's an old style. Okay, all right, so my name is Jenny McGuire. What I want to talk to you about is the work we've done on tools to visualize the groundwater quality data for the Upper Big Blue. This process was to allow the Upper Big Blue to assess their groundwater quality program on an ongoing basis. It consists of a couple of R scripts. One is was to combine water quality results from not just the Upper Big Blues data, but also USGS data and Nebraska clearinghouse data, and then using data from the registered well database to supplement provide additional information about well construction, with the idea that that could be a factor for explaining or understanding some of the water quality results.
Hang on one second.
Okay. Great, thank you. Step one was we took the water quality results files and assembled what we called a well pedigree about the well data for the information for the wells that have been sampled. So got well depth, screened intervals, sealant information, was it concrete casing, were there any additional seals? And we packaged that up and are making that into a data release, just to say that work we do, we need to make available to the public. So for the Upper Big Blues data, the only data we included in this file were wells that were also in the clearinghouse, but we're using the Upper Big Blues data. But we looked at the clearinghouse, has this data already been made public? Yes, then it was okay to be in our database. But if it's a well that the Upper Big Blue didn't pass to the clearinghouse, then we didn't include it in our file. But when we give this data release when we give the package to the Upper Big Blue, we're going to show them how to incorporate their full databases. And so they will have that data available for this tool. So the first script was this assembly script. And what was used again was, let's see. So Upper Big Blue has two files of water quality data. There's the old access database that for the data prior to when the Beehive was in place. And then there's the Beehive database. And then we also, again, used DNR's database to get some construction information out. Then from the cloud, every time the assembly script is run, it goes against the cloud for the clearinghouse and pulls in any wells with data that are within the Upper Big Blue boundary. And then also it goes to the water quality portal, pulls in any of that data. So that data is always up to the minute. The Upper Big Blue databases, we're going to show them a method to update those data sets. But for right now, it's a snapshot at a particular point in time. And the results we're going to show are using those snapshot databases. So this script then assembles those and makes an output file, which is that limey green. Let me see if I can. Well, anyway, to the right, it's the file there that goes to the Shiny app, and it also produces some reports just about the process of doing the matching, that when Upper Big Blue takes it over, those reports could be useful for just kind of working out some problems with matching up the new data. Then the file that we have created, it goes into what's called an R Shiny app, which is a particular kind of application within the R language. And so what it provides is maps and graphs of the water quality data based on filters by month and year, management zones, well depth, hydrogeologic unit, and sealant information. So this is what when you run the R Shiny app, this is what you get at first. And so we'll try and drill down to this to give you, I won't show you everything that the app does, but I'll show you a bunch of the things. So for one thing, you can filter on the sites that you see. It can be sites that are sampled by Upper Big Blue only, or sites sampled by all agencies, so USGS and then the clearinghouse, which the clearinghouse has state agency data or other NRD data that happen to be in wells in the NRD. Or you can do just those other agencies, just Upper Big Blue. In this case, these examples I'm going to show, I'm running under the filter of Upper Big Blue only. Typically, here's the bar for the time period, and every time the organization script is running, it goes out and picks the latest and greatest out of the clearinghouse, the latest and greatest out of the water quality portal, and then it'll use whatever Upper Big Blue has. If for data, when they update it, it'll use that data also. And so then this bar will extend out for as new data comes through. So what are some of the filters you can use? You can use well construction. Is there a screen seal? So is there a bentonite seal right above the screen? Generally, that's done for monitoring wells, and that's to protect the well from water coming down through the annular space. And so coming from up or higher in the aquifer. So in a monitoring well, you only want to see water that's coming in at the interval where that well is screened. And that's why you get those, put in those seals. Then there's also aquifer seals. That was a regulation that went in about 2014. And so it's so you're in an aquifer and you've got a confining unit. It's putting a seal from at this top aquifer so that the water doesn't come down into the lower aquifer. So it's trying to be more protective of the aquifers in the system. But again, it's a fairly recent reg, so you don't, a lot of wells don't have it. Concrete casing, as I'm sure all of you know, at say the 70s, I don't know, 80s, concrete casing was a method of well construction that was used for many of the wells. The problem with concrete casing, though, is that there's no seal at each one of the seams of those units of the casing as they're put in. There's no seal, so you can have leakage around those seals. And our initial thought was that leakage may be causing some of the problem. That was one of our hypotheses. Surface seal, that reg has been in place for a long time, and it's a bentonite layer up at, here's land surface, it's right at land surface to try to block drainage from land surface down through the annular space. And then unknown. Okay, so sealed, and this sealed its surface or additional seal, that additional seal was an aquifer seal or a screen seal. All right, so what's another option? Groundwater management zone. So the 12 zones within the NRD, and then to the right, it shows you what phase those zones are in. There's also depth category. So shallow, 0 to 50, 50 to 99, da 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 da. And then the water bearing zone. I'm going to fix this so that it goes from oldest to youngest, but for right now it goes from it goes mixture, but it goes in alphabetic order, but not even alphabetic order. Okay, so there's the Dakota and other older, deeper aquifers. There's the confined high plains, upper and lower, the unconfined high plains, upper and lower, and then mixed, where you have a well that's screened in both the upper and lower. And then there's also a category of it hasn't been classified. All right, so let's look at zone 7, which is a phase 2 zone. What can you do with this tool? And so what we're going to look at is one of the things you can do a depth box plot. What else can you do? You can do a construction box plot. What else can you do? You can look at the details. You can see a graph of nitrate in that well, which is the well with the highest nitrate in this zone. You can look at a site, well, that's what the graph is. So yeah. All right. So I'll show you that. So this is a box plot of zone 7, nitrate by depth. But before we, first I want to talk to you about, I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with box plots, you probably are, and so this is repeat, but I'll just talk about it a little bit. So what a box plot shows, it shows the range of values for that category. And the line in the middle, that's the median. So 50% of the results in this depth category are above this line, 50% below. The box delineates the 25th and 75th percentile. The whiskers is what they call these lines, that delineates the 10th and the 90th percentile. Outliers are these dots up here. In any of this data, we're not seeing outliers, low outliers, we're just seeing high outliers. All right, so what else is something to tell you about? You might see these numbers down here and wonder, what does that mean? Well, in the explanation, the blue value is the UBB, the upper big blue sample count for this depth category and the well count. If the number's in green, it's the USGS sample count and well count. If it's in red, it's other agencies sample count and well count. And then finally at the bottom, it's a total. And I'll just warn you, in some cases, the total well count won't sum the outside value there. And that's because it could be the upper big blue sampled it and another agency sampled it. So the well only gets counted once. And so then so the total, you might think there's an error in the total, but that's why, because it's more than one agency sampled the same well. So the sample count, you can sum the left side, those numbers down, but the right side, it's always going to be less than or equal to the sum. Okay, so again, let's look at this, this box plot. So what you could say is, or you could think to yourself, I wonder if it's the shallow wells that are the ones that are have the high nitrates. Well, no. Now, what about the 100 to 200 foot depth? Well, yeah, it's high up to almost 15, but it's this 200 to 299 where you see these outliers way up here. Although the median is very low, or is relatively low. And similarly, the greater than 300. So, so it's information, understanding about the wells in this zone. So what if we thought about, well, I wonder if it depends on when the well was installed. So this is by construction period. So 50 to 59 and yada, 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 10 years each. And so initially our thought is, you know, maybe the newer wells, because they have better well construction, maybe they're going to be lower in nitrate. And there is some sense, or there is some agreement on that, but you also have very new wells that have very high nitrates. Now, what if we said, well, let's look at this one well that's the highest in zone 7. If you click on that, you get this box that shows you information about the well, what its depth is, what water bearing zone it's in, what its UBB number is. And it gives you this well construction. It gives you this information. This happens to be concrete casing. So you could look at that and think, and go to the site plot and see what is nitrate in this well. Well, actually, something happened and nitrate went way up in this well in around the 2020 mark. That's the last time it was sampled that we have in our file. Well, what if you said, well, let's look at wells surrounding our well of interest, which is this well. So we're going to look at a yellow well here, which is greater than 7.5. We're going to look at a green well, which is 5 to 7.5. And we're going to look at an orange well, which is 10 to 20. So this is an example of the yellow well. And so it started out at 15 back in 99, and it's come down to less than 10. What about the green well? Well, it's going up. I mean, it's still lower. It's less than 5. It's around 5 right now. But and what if we look at the depth? It's now I can't read that very well. I think it's like
236.
236. Okay. So, and it's concrete casing. Okay, what if we look at the orange well? And this one is gosh. Is that surface seal? What does it say at the bottom on the seal? Screen seal?
Screen seal.
Oh. Yeah. So it's, whoops. Come on.
That was me. I did that for you.
Oh, thank you. So the thing of it is, it's like, what is going on at this particular location? Or what is going on in zone 7 in this area? And so what you could wonder is, well, have any other agencies sampled, what do they see? And this is the results from others since 1945. And one of the things you see on this is that here's our well of interest. Oh, no, that's about where the well of interest is. Oh, this is all agencies. So this is our well of interest, and that's a very high nitrate right there. Well, first, what we're going to do is look at the results by depth for zone 7, looking at all results. And what you see is the highest results are in that 200 to 299 category, but you also have that very high result here, which wasn't in the UBB's results. So we look at this, and this is that very high result. And it was a sample that the NDEE took this April of 2023. It's in a domestic well, 230 foot deep. Dave Miesbach, I've talked to him about it. He's the one that Dave Miesbach and Dan Snow worked on this. And I know they're still doing work on it. They collected a lot of samples. They're doing a lot of analysis, trying to figure it out. But it's a puzzle, because really this well, it's excellent construction. There's overburden on it. It's excellent construction. It's down at 230. It's got a screen, it's got a seal around it, even though it's not noted there. And so they don't know yet what's causing this nitrate to be so high at this particular well. Dave's speculation, at least when I talked to him maybe a couple of weeks ago, was there must be an upgradient well, that some practices happen somehow, then that water is coming down, and this well is and this person is getting the bad effects from that, whatever happened. He actually, I'll say this, I don't know how common of a practice, he said, but that a long time ago that there could have been a practice of pouring fertilizer down a well, kind of like a cheap way to chemigate. I don't know if that's true. He doesn't know if that's true. But anyway, this well's a puzzle. Why? It's good construction. It should have low nitrates, but it doesn't. And that's the NDEE sample. It's only one. Okay. So what this tool, the idea of this tool is to allow the NRD staff and the board, and if the public wants to run it, they could look at it, but it's to allow them to look at the results. And the way a person could approach it is, well, like on this particular one, that red line, that red result, it's high, but there are other wells around that area that are high. It's something to maybe, can a person figure out something about what's going on there? Do you throw it out? I don't think so, because it's valid data, but it's valid data, but we lack some of the, maybe the data to really figure it out and sleuth out why it is the way it is. Another task was to look at replacement wells and compare the well characteristics for a subset of the replacement wells to the original wells. I looked at some of these, certainly not all of them. I looked at a subset of these, and the ones I looked at were adequate replacements, in that the replacement was in a similar location, not that far away, a similar depth. And so the one step I need to still do is look at, are the results that different between the two of them? But they're generally, because there may be different well construction, that could be one reason. But as we've seen in some of this other stuff, it isn't that well construction's a smoking gun, that if you've got a concrete casing, you're going to have high nitrates. No, that's not true. It isn't necessarily that a surface seal is going to protect you versus a non-surface seal. But anyway, I'm going to look some more at those replacements. The other thing I looked at was to qualitatively look at the different water bearing zones within the aquifer. Again, it's the unconfined high plains. I didn't put high plains in there, but it's the upper, lower, and mixed high plains, the confined high plains, upper and lower, and the Dakota and deeper units. So, and my bottom line is, it looked like maybe if a couple additional wells could be good in these areas to define what the nitrate results are. Okay, so this is the upper unconfined, the upper and lower unconfined high plains and mixed. And so to me, so this is the overall upper Big Blue, and this is the upper Big Blue results only. It isn't all the results. So my thought is it might be worth it to look if there could be some additional wells, a couple, maybe, just, it doesn't have to be that many, but one or two, or 3 or 4, something in that area, in those different areas for that particular hydrogeologic unit or water bearing zone. And then looking at the confined aquifer, so there's an upper confined and a lower confined. And this part I didn't do, but is looking at, does the, I believe the upper and lower confined exist here in this zone, but we don't have very many wells. And so just where these arrows are, it's like, if there was even 1 or 2 more wells in that area, that would help to define the conditions in that area. And the Dakota is just on, the Dakota is the superficial aquifer and the aquifer that's used on the eastern side of the NRD. And so again, it's just, there's 1 or 2 something in this area could be useful to define the characteristics. Okay, so what's the next step? It's to complete the data release is at the approval stage. So it's to complete the publication. The software release is being prepared for peer review. Once it goes through peer, then it goes through approval. And then once that gets done, okay, and so another thing is to review an additional set of replacement wells and then deliver the tool to the Upper Big Blue staff, showing them how to incorporate their current data. So that's all I have.
Yes, Roger.
The well that you had that was higher, were you able to diagnose if they were synthetic or organic nitrates?
Say that again.
The well that was so much out of whack, were you able to figure out if that was synthetic or organic nitrates?
I believe that Dave Niesbach is doing that type of analysis for that one that was 120. I believe he's doing that, but I'll find that out and I can let you know.
That would give us a
Yes.
better idea what it
Yes.
might cause.
Good point, good point.
Does anyone have any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So with everything that you showed on there, are you, at this point, are you mainly just having all the data put into something that can be used and you'll have a report on what lots of that stuff looks like? Or
There won't be a report.
it'll just be a tool to be
data
used?
release and a software release,
Okay,
and it can be run on your computer. All you need is the R language on your computer.
and so you're just pulling the correct data from all the sources and putting it in one
Yes.
spot so that different entities can use it then. as a-
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
gotcha.
Is there any other questions or comments? No, it doesn't look like it. So thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you.
very interesting. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll move on to a uranium study with Farzana Rahman.
Can everyone hear me okay? I think this mic is live. Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Farzana, and I'm a master's student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And I'm excited to be here to share some of the results of my research, which looks at water quality in domestic wells in the Upper Big Blue NRD. And I'm particularly focusing on uranium. This work wouldn't have been possible without the funding from the Child Health Research Institute and the Nebraska Geological Society. But while I'm here, I also want to extend my thanks to the members of the Upper Big Blue, so the staff and homeowners that participated in this study. I had the opportunity to work with Marie, Aaron, and Jacob, and my research wouldn't have been possible without their help. So thank you. My research is motivated by the fact that a majority of rural residents in Nebraska rely on groundwater for their primary source of drinking water. And while groundwater is a vital resource for drinking water and agriculture, it's subject to pollution from surface processes and subsurface processes. And these can be anthropogenic processes or anthropogenic activities can lead to contamination, but there are also natural processes that can also contaminate groundwater. Uranium is one of those contaminants, geogenic contaminants that is commonly found in groundwater in Nebraska. And the issue with uranium is that it's difficult to predict areas that might be at risk for impaired water quality. And in terms of drinking water, the EPA has limits has set limits to uranium in drinking water. And these limits are based on negative health effects that are related with chronic exposure to high concentrations of uranium. And so they include, uranium is associated with blood and bone cancers, and it's also associated with kidney toxicity. When we're thinking about groundwater, I think it's helpful to consider it as a larger geochemical system. And so here, water enters the system as precipitation or rain, and as it's falling, it interacts with the atmosphere, with gases in the atmosphere. It also interacts with materials on the surface of the earth, and then rocks and minerals in the subsurface. And so a lot of people, when they think about groundwater, they think about it in a discrete way. So the gases are separate, the water exists, and then there are rocks and minerals that, there are rocks that hold this water. But in actuality, there's exchange between the gases in the system and water, and the minerals in the aquifer and water, and that all of those interactions affect the concentration of different materials that are dissolved in water. And so when we're thinking about what affects water quality, we want to consider the sources, whether they're natural or anthropogenic. We want to consider some of the properties of water, so the pH, the composition of different ions in water. And we also want to consider reactions that might be occurring in water. So these include oxidation reduction reactions, precipitation dissolution, to name a few. So my research is particularly interested in looking at uranium, and I'm going to focus on uranium that is from natural sources, not from mining or enrichment. And so I'm focused on the rocks. Uranium is a naturally occurring metal, and it's found in really small trace concentrations in soil, air, and water. And in nature, it exists in two oxidation states: a tetravalent state, U+4, which is the insoluble form of uranium in reducing conditions. And then it also exists in the hexavalent state, so U+6. And this form is soluble. It can be dissolved in water in oxic conditions. So I said that uranium is found in trace concentrations in a number of different medium, but it's also found in higher concentrations in certain types of rocks. And the first type of rock is igneous rocks. And this is because uranium is the largest naturally occurring element in the periodic table. And so as a result of its size, it's poorly incorporated into melts, and it becomes preferentially fractionated into certain types of igneous rocks, felsic igneous rocks, such as granite and rhyolite. And it exists in the form of minerals such as uraninite. And these are considered to be primary uranium minerals and deposits. When these deposits are oxidized in weather, they can be dissolved into water. And so here uranium can exist. Let's see if I can try to use this. It can exist in solution as different complexes, carbonate complexes, for example. When this water flows into environments that are reducing, that don't have a lot of oxygen, it can precipitate out and form secondary uranium deposits in minerals such as carnotite. What makes it difficult to predict where the source of uranium is coming from in places like the Upper Big Blue is that the Upper Big Blue sits on the boundary between multiple aquifer systems. So while the High Plains aquifer, which is represented in the blue, is the primary source of groundwater in the NRD, there are other aquifers that exist. So the Ogallala aquifer, the Ogallala Formation, which is the primary water-bearing unit of the High Plains aquifer, it's thin or absent in the eastern part of the NRD. And here, the Dakota aquifer and glacial till aquifers exist. On the northern part of the NRD boundary, we also have the Platte River and the associated Platte River alluvial aquifer. So the sources of water are different even within the boundaries of the NRD. When we look at previous work that people have done looking at uranium concentrations in groundwater in Nebraska, we find that the high concentrations of uranium have been found in at the Crawford mine, at a mine in Crawford, Nebraska, and the uranium source at that mine is associated with volcanic ash. High concentrations of uranium have also been detected in the Platte River and the shallow alluvial aquifer, and sources of this uranium have been attributed to weathering products that have been carried down through the Platte, and then also interactions between the Platte River and Cretaceous bedrock. There have also been studies that show correlation between high uranium concentrations and high nitrate concentrations in the High Plains aquifer. Uranium concentrations have also been found in high uranium concentrations have also been found in glacial till aquifers in Nebraska. And lastly, there's been a renewed interest in understanding possible health implications that are associated with exposure to water that contains high uranium. And there is a recent study published by Owatra et al. 2022 that found a weak positive association between birth defects and high concentrations of uranium. This work that I'm presenting is built on some of that work. So the initial results of my research was published as part of that paper. But my focus is trying to understand, where is uranium detected in high concentrations within the NRD, and what environmental factors might be responsible for mobilizing the uranium. So my study objectives involve first characterizing the distribution of uranium within wells in the Upper Big Blue. And to do that, I collected water samples, or I had water samples collected and I analyzed them from domestic wells in the Upper Big Blue. The second part is to understand whether we can use historic data and create interpolations to predict areas that might be at risk. And I wanted to then validate those interpolations with the data that I collected. To do this, to create the interpolations, I performed a spatial analysis called kriging, and that was done using ArcGIS. And then for the third part, I wanted to understand whether there were relationships between uranium and other environmental factors that may help us explain why it's being immobilized. And I used Spearman's Row to determine if those relationships were statistically significant. So one of the methods that I focused on was spatial analysis. And so here I used historic data on uranium concentrations reported for irrigation, domestic and livestock wells in Nebraska. And I had approximately 2,000 data points for southeastern Nebraska. And what I did was I used ArcGIS and kriging to take the values of known uranium concentrations to predict the values of uranium at unknown locations. And so with kriging, we can create a predicted surface, and then we can also, it also generates the error associated with those predictions. And I also did a secondary validation of those predictions using my water quality results. So this is the first map that was generated using kriging interpolation. And so the high concentrations of uranium are represented in the darker orange colors, and the low concentrations are in the yellow and blue. So one of the things that we notice here is that higher concentrations were predicted to occur around the Platte River. And this is consistent with what we find in the literature, where there's high concentrations of uranium in surface water around the Platte. But for the rest of the study area, we see lower concentrations of uranium. And in terms of how well this prediction, in terms of how well we were able to predict the concentrations of uranium, there's a 13.43 milligram per liter difference between the predicted values and the measured values in the NOR database. When we compare the results from the water quality analysis that I performed and the predicted values, we see that on average for the upper Big Blue sites, the uranium concentration was predicted to be about 5 milligrams per liter, but the actual measured concentrations had an average of about 13 milligrams per liter. And the model underpredicted values over half the time. However, the model only underpredicted values that were above the MCL about 8% of the time. So in conclusion, at least for the spatial analysis, we find that kriging can be useful to predict general trends, but it significantly underpredicts higher concentrations of uranium. And I think part of this is because the model is influenced by the input data, and that is skewed towards lower values. So about 100 of the samples out of 2,000 were above the MCL. And so there's just there's a larger amount of data points that have low values. Another thing that we need to consider when using methods like kriging is that we need to consider sampling bias. So for the NOR database, it's unclear how those sites were selected, but for this sites that I had in my data, in my research, those were selected based on a larger health study. And so there is some sampling bias. And I think that in the future, if this method is to be used, a random equal area sampling design could improve or strengthen the results. So the second part of my talk will focus on results that were the second part of my talk will focus on results from water quality analysis for a subset of all of my sites. So for 17 wells, we were able to collect some other field parameters and measure additional analytes. And so I was able to go out in the field and measure alkalinity, pH, temperature, and some of these field parameters could help us better explain could help us better explain why we might have high concentrations of uranium in certain wells. And so in terms of results, what we see for our sites is out of the 50 sites, sorry, this is actually 17 out of the 17 sites. Only 4 out of 17 sites had concentrations of uranium above the MCL of 30 micrograms per liter, but the highest concentration that we measured was 148 milligrams per liter, which is about 5 times the maximum contaminant limit. In terms of nitrate, which is another contaminant that's commonly found in groundwater in Nebraska, 8 out of 17 sites had nitrate concentrations that were above the MCL of 10. And then all of our sites had concentrations of arsenic that were below the MCL of 10. Another thing that we can look at with the additional analysis is we can categorize the sites based on the dominant water type. And this is based on the dominant cation or positively charged ion and anion in the water. And a majority of our sites were calcium bicarbonate types, which is common for this area. But there were 2 sites that had calcium sulfate type. And these sites also had concentrations of uranium above the MCL. And they're sort of clustered in the northeastern part of this Piper diagram. Another thing that we can do is look at the relationship between uranium concentrations and other dissolved constituents in our water samples. And so bicarbonate or baking soda is another constituent that can influence uranium mobility. And it does that by causing the formation of uranium carbonate complexes. And we actually didn't find a significant correlation between high uranium concentrations and bicarbonate concentrations in our study. We can also look at dissolved oxygen. I mentioned before that oxygen can oxidize uranium and turn it and cause it to become soluble in water. But what we noticed is that oxygen was not correlated with high concentrations of uranium. In fact, some of the highest concentrations of uranium occurred at sites that had really low concentrations of dissolved oxygen. And when we look to the literature about what explanations we can have about why this is, there's one of the ideas is that the high concentrations of uranium can occur where dissolved oxygen is low in redox boundaries. So the initial uranium is trapped in reducing sediments, but then pulses of oxygen can enter that system and cause that uranium to be mobilized. And so that's one possible explanation for why our results look this way. Another thing that we looked at is nitrate concentrations and uranium concentrations. And this is because there are other studies that show that nitrate can mobilize uranium by oxidizing it. That is not a relationship that we observed in our study. So in conclusion, we were able to detect some sites within the Upper Big Blue NRD that had uranium concentrations above the MCL. And collecting and analyzing samples for additional parameters may help us identify similarities between sites that have high concentrations of uranium and also begin to understand processes that might be driving uranium mobilization. And for future directions, I think we can use isotopic analysis to determine sources of uranium in groundwater in Nebraska. These are my references, and then I can take some questions.
So does anyone have any questions?
Farzana, for the 4 samples that you did get uranium above the MCL, none of those were part of the 8 that were high in nitrate, because you did not find a correlation between nitrates
But we can,
and a redox reaction.
no.
So different than what Dr. Weber had found in the Hastings area. Or does that change, the conclusions that Dr. Weber had in the Hastings area?
Well, there are several, well, nitrate is just one oxidant that can oxidize uranium. There's oxygen, nitrate, and other oxidants also exist. So In our samples, it didn't seem that nitrate, I mean, we didn't find high concentrations of uranium to be correlated with nitrate.
Kendall.
You had mentioned like the two different types of water that you mainly found. And there was like some correlation with one type of water, at least a small one. Is that the type of water that you end up with? Is that based off the rock that is in the area where that groundwater is? And then that's what changes that
Right. So I
compilation?
think that was calcium sulfate.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it can be based on the rock, it can be based on materials, like materials, sorry. So you can get high sulfate concentrations from materials in the subsurface, but we can also get it from evaporation, like processes like evaporation, which concentrate solutes. And so this, like the two sites that had high, that had this water type, it's, I don't know if it's significant that they had this water type, but we did observe a correlation between sulfate concentrations and uranium concentrations. And I have a slide that looks at that.
is that found anywhere else, like in the nation? You know, like is a high sulfur, and has that ever been correlated or not?
Not with uranium, but
Okay.
high, the calcium sulfate water type is found in Nebraska, in like the Dakota Formation and other parts of Nebraska.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, oh, I guess not. Thank you very much for presenting that information
Thank
to
you.
us. Thank you. But now we'll move on to the Water Regulations Committee report. Kendall.
Okay, the Water and Regulations Committee met Thursday, December 14th, 2023 at 9:00 a.m. at the NRD office. Those participated are here below. For committee members, it was Dickinson, Miller, Audie, Peterson, Staley, myself, and Yates. Other staff, directors, and guests are also listed down below. Action items: groundwater transfer authorization. Marie Johnson owns 73.6 acres in the southwest quarter of section 21 T1304. The property is watered by well G026917. Marjorie Johnson would like to transfer an additional 73.6 acres in the east half of the northeast quarter of section 2013-4, owned by Marjorie Johnson. Both tracts are in Polk County. This transfer fits within the groundwater transfer rules. The application is attached. Motion to approve groundwater transfer T123. Motion carried 6 yes, 0 no, and I so move. Second.
Rodney. Is there any questions on this? Or comments? I believe we have individuals here that are involved in this, you know. This would be a good time to ask them if they have, or if you have any questions. Okay, roll call.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Hattershell,
Yeah.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item B, large water user application for consideration. Olson presented a well permit hydrologic evaluation for Synergen for the purpose of construction of a 2,300 gallon per minute well for a proposed ammonia product plant. The down draw at this site will be 10 to 14 feet with reduction in the drawdown to 1 to 3 feet at the middle, at the 3-mile radius of the site. A peer review of Olson's evaluation was completed by Brown and Caldwell. Motion is to accept the study by Synergen and the permit to construct, well, accept the study by Olson is probably what it should actually say. By Synergen, for Synergen to permit and construct a water well for the project. The motion carried 6 yes, 1 no, and I so move.
John, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, is there any questions on this? I know there was, we took quite a little time at committee with this. So I know the Olson reps are here, so. If there's
And
any
there is
questions or comments,
There
And there
was
is a copy
also,
of Brown and Caldwell's review. I laid that at your table, so and there wasn't anything in there that raised any red flags that I see, so.
John,
So do we need to amend this motion to allow the well, or what is our final, where should we be today?
Well, the motion is to accept
yeah,
the study and to permit the construction of the well, so it's within that motion.
so with accepting the permit, that would covered, I think, so. Any other questions or comments?
I got a
Kendall.
question. Marie, you had, I thought someone had asked about like what the use was on some of our other large water users, or what the well, what the drawdown looked like around them. Was any of that stuff looked into, or?
We've been looking into that and we haven't really. We've been looking into that and we haven't really found, we haven't gotten anything put together yet for you guys. We've looked at groundwater level change maps in relation to our large water users, and we're not seeing really any, bullet holes or anything around those large water users. But we're visiting with Brown and Caldwell. We're talking internally to see if there's a way that we can get that information to you, so that could show you guys and answer the question that you're asking.
Roger,
Well, if we're waiting for that information, aren't we putting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit if we're gonna approve this before we have that information?
I guess, or either that or staff's not understanding what information you're requesting. We interpreted the question was with our existing large water users, looking at groundwater level changes in and around those large water users, are we seeing any significant drops in groundwater level? And so far, we're not. I mean, staff isn't, but unless we interpreted your guys' question wrong.
Yeah,
Well, I was just,
we were looking at it as, we've taken our change maps and seeing if it's the ones that we have been approved. If we're seeing anything that goes against what the study said, that there wouldn't be, a problem with that. And we're not seeing any bullseyes being developed around any of those large water users. So I think our studies are doing exactly what we're asking them to do as far as we can see at this point. We're not seeing anything that it's missing.
I was just going off of what she said, is we're trying to still get some data together to get to us, and that was what I was getting at. If we're still waiting on some data to find this out, that was where I was getting at.
John,
Roger, basically, they used our model that we've been paying for 15 years, and the peer review is not seeing that the model will show a
Yeah, I was
change.
just, Marie said when she said there was some more information to come, that was what I was,
Oh,
I didn't wanna be making a decision before we get all the information we're supposed to be getting on this.
No, the information that was requested was looking at all of our large water users, not specifically this one.
Yeah, just in general.
Yes, Bill.
So what was the next largest water user we had in gallons per minute? You know,
I don't. You know which one? it
Well,
is? I'm not-
for the proposed pumping from Fortigen down, or Nebraska Nitrogen down by Geneva. But what we're finding from the annual reports that they submit is they're not pumping as much as they had estimated in their model.
so what are they pumping in terms of gallons per minute on average?
That I can't tell you. I know, we look at it as lump sum pumping, and I'd have to grab my laptop. And I can get that for you if you want me to.
Give me a minute. So Cap and Imes are in this proposed area, and there seems to be a really large overlap between those two users or three users. I'm assuming this study takes into account that, Steve? That's correct. Yeah. And has it also any implications for the city of Aurora in the future?
Hang on one second. We need to have a microphone.
It's a good ways outside of the city of Aurora. We don't believe it will have any implications.
How far away from Aurora is this?
Roughly speaking, I would say 4 to 5 miles. I can look it up if you want to know the exact.
Oh, no, that's close enough. Is there any other questions or comments? Yep, go ahead.
So, I mean, this is a really large permit. I was just doing some math and it looks like, I mean, that's enough water to put 9 inches on 4,940 acres in a year. Is my math right? Is that kind of what you came up with? Yeah, I mean, put this into terms that people can understand how much water this is gonna use.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't do that math. We just put it in as,
How many acre inches?
I'd have to whip out my laptop too. I'm sorry.
So
I don't disagree that it's a large amount of water.
I guess I came up with 44,500 acre inches at 20, that's pumping 2,300 gallons year round.
Yeah, if you've adjusted for the timing of the irrigation season, I would assume as being a shorter time frame.
Why would we adjust for the irrigation season?
Oh, I guess I'm trying to ask if you did in your math. One's a year-round water use and one's not.
Yeah, I mean, 2,300 gallons a minute year round is 44,500 acre inches.
Acre inches, not acre feet.
Acre
Yes,
inches.
yeah. Yeah, Anthony.
Since I'm new before, I don't know this answer. Are they required?
Microphone.
Are they required to do any offsets when they're taking this much water that could irrigate 5,000 acres if we went into allocation?
I can answer that. I'm Vanessa Silk. I'm an attorney with Barrett Holm and I represent Synergen Green Energy. I work with the city of Aurora's economic development director and with Olson. By statute for this type of use, and your manager here can confirm this, they would be under allocation in accordance with the terms of the IMP and by statute. There are specific statutory triggers for controls on commercial and industrial non-municipal wells. And so we have different statutes that address municipal wells, for example, industrial and commercial non-municipal, and then irrigation wells. And so irrigators largely controlled by IMPs directly, and you've got your map there or your graph, I'm sorry, on the backboard there that shows when an allocation has been triggered. It has never been triggered since you've imposed allocation rules or adopted them. And you've had a handful of years where you've had reporting requirements. And so that demonstrates requirements for the NRD in general. The statutes and the IMP would control the user going forward. If there's questions about the value of this relative on balance, in comparison to those irrigation uses, I know that Kelsey can speak to that as far as jobs, economic impact, and taxes that are also brought into the county by this specific project, which I think are very important for the board to consider in addition to the water questions.
Marie,
Hey, Anthony, to better answer, we don't have an IMP in this area. So we are governed by our Rule 5. So if this is constructed before an allocation comes into play, if we ever trigger one, they would get 100% of their historic use. And if they wanted to expand that use, then they would have to provide offset.
So at this point, they don't have to do any offset
No.
to account for that. That was my question. I
Yeah.
never questioned the value to the community and the taxes.
Okay.
I understand that better than you do.
No, I'm glad to hear that that's been considered. I'm jumping in today to cover for another person, so I'm not familiar with what y'all have discussed before today. Thank you.
oh, but my memory's right, when they put in the ethanol plant right southwest of Fairmont, I think because I know they shut down a couple irrigation wells. But I think there was an agreement that if there was a problem with the water, I think there's 2 or 3 wells or maybe more than that to the northwest, that they agreed that they would shut those wells down. Yeah, I'm just pretty sure, there was agreement. Now, I don't know who the agreement's between though. I don't know whether it's between the farmers and the alcohol place or not, but I'm pretty sure there's several wells that they agreed that they would shut down. And I know in the land they bought, there was irrigation wells there, and I think they did away with 2 of those, whether they had to or not, I don't know. But that's what they chose to do. They put some ground from irrigated to dry land right in there, so. Yep.
So if this passes and you start having problems with neighbors' wells going dry, is this company going to do anything to help those people out?
Their duty to assist or deal with that would be governed by statute. And we do have 46,613, if I'm quoting this correctly, that puts preference classes for uses. So irrigation is above industrial and commercial use. Domestic, of course, is above everything. So depending on the type of wells in the area, that would dictate who would have preference for access to water and how that would be worked out. As far as getting more specific, I couldn't tell you. I know that from a technical perspective, Jim can answer questions on the likelihood of that ever occurring.
Yeah, no, I would say based on all of the well logs that we looked at in the area, and the condition of the aquifer, the many tens of feet of coarse gravels, this is a good aquifer area, and I don't anticipate that outcome.
So how deep are you gonna drill the wells? Is there 4 wells, I believe?
I think right now it would be 4 wells, and I can't tell you exactly how deep they would go. That would be determined by the well driller following a test hole being drilled. But I would suspect it's going to be of similar depth to irrigation wells in the area because the pumping rate would be similar.
Roger.
Say we go into a allocation in 25 and they have no historic pumping before that. How do we deal with that? I mean, I realize I run a business. You always overestimate how much water you're gonna need. Geneva's done that, that's obvious. Most of the outfits we do. So do we follow the numbers they're giving us to give them their historic, or what? Because they won't have a historic number.
Right.
if we're going to allocation.
Right, I would, it'd be my recommendation for you guys to take what they're proposing to withdraw until we have data. Cause they will have to meter their water and they will have to turn in annual reports. And once you had some historic numbers put to it, then you could adjust what their allocation would be.
Does Rule 5 allow us to do that?
Yes, it should, yes, there's language in there for that.
Yeah, because actually we'd go through the first 3 years and then if we still see that we're below that trigger point, then we reset the clock with the new 5-year. So then we'd be able to take that 3 years of data or 2 or whatever we had and incorporate that into the next.
Well, my worry about that is they can pick a number they want for those first 3 years. Whereas everybody else that we're dealing with has a historic number
Right.
that we're dealing with, and they can pick whatever number they want to use for those first 3 years.
We'd have to base it off their meter.
Well, that's
readings.
what I'm saying. They're picking the number. We're not picking the number. With everybody else, we have historic numbers for that.
Right. That's real awkward.
Anthony.
Marie, this is for you, because I think you understand this more than anyone else in the room. If we're in a current allocation period, let's say it's a year from now, we're in allocation, how would you look at this request? Would it be allowed to come in during allocation time?
Rule 5, if we are in an allocation, does not stop development of any kind, whether it's municipal, agricultural, or industrial. What it does is it says that we will prorate your allocation. You would likely use this study where they're proposing their 3 million gallons a day as the starting point for their allocated amount, depending upon where they fall within the allocation period. If we're a year and a half into the allocation period, their allocation would be 3 million gallons a day for a year and a half to get us to the end of the 3-year allocation. And then at that time, you could evaluate based on meter readings and data from the wells, how much water they're truly pumping, like Terry's saying, before you go if you go into a second allocation.
John.
I realize this is probably one of the first permits you asked for. If all of your permitting goes smoothly and timely, what is the proposed first operational date for this plant?
That has continually been a moving target. The most recent update that we've heard is 2028.
You have another question? You're thinking. Bill.
Yeah, I am. I mean, what Marie used proposed a lot, several times, I believe. What you propose we do, I think you gotta throw that out. What are the current rules and regulations?
Current rules and regulations do not allow for there is no capping to any development, even if we're in an allocation.
So using Roger's scenario and her date, we go into allocation in 25 and this thing comes online in 28.
We could be finishing up our first, I hate it because I don't even want to talk about allocations. But if we hit in an allocation, if we could be potentially either in the last year of an allocation period or just finishing up an allocation period where we would continue, we would evaluate the water levels at that point, and then you guys would have to decide if you wanted to enter into a second allocation period or not. And this could be coming online.
Back to my question.
Hang on 1 second. I'm not picking up your microphone. Is it working or do you need to just? Yeah, there we go. That's better.
If we go into allocation in 25 and this plant comes online in 28, what are the current regulations to know how much water they're gonna get?
Depending upon when it comes online, if it's early 28 or late 28, they would get an allocation prorated to however many days are left before the next allocation period starts.
So we would go back, say they ran 6 months out of that last 3 years, but then we would use those 6 months or a daily average, whatever. And then that's what we would set their allocation for.
Yes, and you
Okay.
would base it on the numbers either from this study or unless, I would say if they brought you numbers that once they got the plant constructed, if they were less, but they're not gonna bring you less. So you'd base it on, you'd base it on on the numbers used for the study. If it came out to be more, you could then, you could say, okay, well, now that wasn't what was simulated in your hydrologic evaluation. Please, redo your hydrologic evaluation to reflect your increased pumping. But
Roger?
All right, so that happens, whether it's the last year or 6 months, whatever. And we reduce the allocation to agriculture or whatever by, say we go from 10 to 8 inches. We're dropping it by 20%. So that would reduce their allocation 20%, that after 6 months, is that right?
That's not the way we're.
you could, but you would, without, legal counsel in here, you could end up in a lawsuit.
Well, if we're reducing everybody else in the district by 20%, why wouldn't we be reducing their amount by 20% too?
And that's a decision you guys can make.
If we're going off historic and we're having to reduce allocation across the whole district, it would look really ugly if we were reducing everybody in the district's allocation except for one entity.
Well, you'd probably lump it all for all large water users. I don't think you could single out one.
I'm not picking out one. No, I'm not, excuse me, I didn't mean to be, I'm just saying that if we're reducing it 20% for all the ag, we'd have to be reducing 20% for all the rest too.
I have one response on that, and again, respect that you have your own legal counsel. This specific treatment of commercial, industrial, non-municipal wells is established, like your authority is limited by the statute and further conditioned by the rules that you have in place. And so when she talks about historic use and how you get there, if it comes online after an allocation has already been started, that would be gray area to figure out. But one point I want to make sure we get across is we're asking you to approve this permit for the amount that's in the study, that's on the application. If this comes online and they exceed it, we have to seek a modification of the permit. We can't just use more water. I want to make that very, very clear. Yeah.
John?
But Roger, you're talking about totally changing Rule 5. Rule 5 right now has a set amount for the second allocation period.
It does right now, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about, if you're going to a percentage,
Well,
we're way into Rule 5.
I was just using the percentage, if we went from 10 to 8 inches, that would be a 20% drop. But I think it's 10 to 9, so it's a 10% drop.
Yeah.
But it'd be a 10% drop for everybody, is what I'm getting. I just was using the numbers to make it easy for everybody to figure out. So I just want to be square on that, how we're gonna handle that, because that's a possibility. And I want them to know it and us to know it before we ever get into this thing. So everybody can plan for the same thing and we're not, all of a sudden somebody says, oh, you didn't tell us that could happen. Because we've been there before.
Is there any other comments or questions? Yeah.
So what is it that we're voting on today? The exact.
To accept the permit for the large water user. And whatever it says on the application for 2,300 gallons a minute. Am I correct?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, go ahead.
if approved, when would the well more than likely be? You have to get everything else approved too, through county commissioners, all that stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah, Anthony.
So can we actually vote no, or by statute, will they get their water either way? Is this just a formality today?
By rules, we don't technically have a reason to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, because they've done all, their study and everything we've required of them. Now, but if we think this, the effect that it's gonna have on the surrounding area, and I'll give an example. So, in a 3 mile radius, it's supposed to drop at 1 to 3 feet. If we think that's too much, I guess we can deny it, I mean, I guess I'm speaking, and maybe I shouldn't be speaking, but I should be letting Terry. So I guess that's what we're doing, or the next distance out, or the closer distance, it was gonna drop it by more. So, but if we don't like that, or if we don't think it's right, then we don't, give them the permit. Am I right, Terry?
Yes, you're
Okay.
or you can put a limitation on it that you cannot exceed X number of gallons or whatever, which would in turn
Change that model.
change that model
Yeah.
of what would actually the drawdown would be.
Rodney.
Do our rules have a parameter as far as a level of drop, like a water level drop that's acceptable, or is that just?
No, we don't. And I have talked to several other districts that do require the same scenario for approving large water users. And there's so many factors that come into that to set a hard number of, well, you can only have X number of drawdown. Well, 10 feet of drawdown in one area may be the same as 1 foot of drawdown in another. So that's why we do the studies to say, okay, look at this, the effect to those around it is going to be minimal, and that's basically the idea of the study, is to show that we're not going to be adversely affecting everybody around this area. If you do this same study over by Stewart, you'd get nothing because you couldn't do it. There just isn't the water available. So that's the whole purpose of this study, is to be able to look at this and at a specific area, and that's why we developed the models, so we can sort this stuff out.
Marie.
Kind of building off what Lynn, was saying, is when the city of York did their large water user study for their well field, when they bought the acres out east of town, that the hydrologic evaluation showed that there would be significant drawdowns that could be impacting the ethanol plant out here. So one of the conditions of the well permit on the city of York was you set a limit of the amount of water that they could withdraw from the well field. They have not hit it. They still have room. They could still construct another well or two out there to withdraw to get to their cap. But that was one of the restrictions that the board at that time put on their construction permit based on the hydrologic evaluation.
Am I correct to say that there was another large user that wanted to come in to the area east of York, and the study said, no, it won't support anymore, so they.
Right, that was over
ahead.
by Tamora.
Okay.
There was an ethanol plant proposed by Tamora, and when they did their hydrologic evaluation, they found that there wasn't enough water. And then over the village of Bradshaw, there was a proposal there to put in an ethanol plant, and then when they did their evaluation, there wasn't enough water.
Yeah, so we never had to make the decision because it was, the study determined that. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to maybe make a finer point on the impacts to the neighboring wells. We didn't make that drawdown map and then just assume, oh, this won't have an effect. We looked at each individual well in the well registration database, the screen interval for each well, and made a well by well determination that the additional drawdown would not affect those wells. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes.
I guess from my point of view as a newer person on the board, I agree with Anthony. We're discussing approval of a project that meets our requirements. And so I would be inclined to say because of the requirements are met, the answer needs to be yes. Now, a lot of the discussion that we've been having would be very important for a rules discussion if we wish to change the rules at a future date on large water users. And so with that, I'd like to call a question.
Okay, but the question's been called for, so that'll.
You're missing an option.
We need it. Have a- please.
Excuse me, but you're missing an option. This is not life or death today, considering the argument that's here.
Larry, we're gonna vote on it, you know, so.
I think you're making an error mistake because a lot of confusion, you're voting on something that's confusing a lot of people. It should be
Larry.
in committee. Go ahead and vote, but I was thinking, it's
Yeah.
a mistake, not go to committee.
Okay, the question's been called for, roll call.
Groot,
No.
Ottershell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seibert,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried 16-1.
Okay, Kevin, or Kendall. Oh, Rod, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say hello
Yeah,
and,
yeah, I saw you back there. I
and,
thought about making you stand up.
wanted to,
And tell everybody who you were, but.
well, I used to work here.
Yeah.
I used to be Marie and I used to be Terry,
Yeah.
but anyway, I just wanted you to, sitting here listening, had two comments. One, you have a superior staff. They do an amazing job.
Thank
And
you.
two, I'm glad I'm retired.
Thanks. I got a question for you. Did you ever make it to Australia? Okay. Okay.
So I just wanted to, before we all take off, thank you guys. We have also been deliberating about this at the local level for a long time. We relied heavily on the study and the people who have the knowledge, even the NRD staff has been very helpful in helping us discern this process as well. So thank you for also your discussion today. I also think that's very valuable.
And thank you on behalf of Synergen. My partner, David Levy, has worked with, I think, quite a few of you and has been involved, and I'm covering for him today. So thank you for your patience with my answers. And thank you to the staff for all of your input.
Okay. Kendall.
Okay, item C, water meter repair cost share. 2 water meter repair cost share assistance applications have been approved for final payments totaling $517.50. A list is attached. Motion to make cost share payments for 2 water meter repair cost share assistance as presented by the staff and reviewed by the committee in the amount of $517.50. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
second.
Okay. Any questions on this? Or comments? Roll call.
Ottershell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seibert,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groot,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item 2 is just a discussion. Cost shareable repairs has been brought to the attention of the staff that there are still issues in the supply chain for some electronic meters and that even after repair, many are still not functioning properly. So staff had recommended the action taken in September of 2022 to allow cost share to be applied for replacements of these electronic meters to refurbished mechanical meters be added to the water meter repair cost share assistance program. Motion, the board approves the following amendment to flow meter repair cost share assistance program. A producer owner has a repairable electronic flow meter that reliable repair parts are not readily available because of supply chain or production issues. And two, that the producer owner replaces the electronic flow meter with a refurbished mechanical flow meter rather than wait for repaired parts. And three, that the producer or owner submits a repair estimate for a recognized repair from a recognized repair facility. That motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Roger.
We do remember that some of these, the reason we went with the electronic is because the mechanical wouldn't work in certain instances. We have to be aware of that and, I'm sure everybody knows it, but certain places you can't put the mechanical, but that's why we went to the electronic on some of them.
Yeah, because of the distances in there, yeah. Yeah.
Right, the ones that we're looking at with these are the ones that of mechanical meter will work within that spacing.
I wanted, it
Yeah,
won't work.
but yeah,
so
we want to be able to repair those that they can repair, that's the only thing that'll work, but we've got guys that have had theirs repaired multiple times and they haven't even lasted a season. And so they're looking at wanting to get to a reliable meter, and we need that reliable data too. So,
Is there any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Seibert,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groth,
Yes.
Pottershell,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item D, regional groundwater modeling payment. An invoice was received totaling $8,007.75 for work performed on the regional scale groundwater flow model of the Blue River Basin for work performed September 29th, 23 through October 26th, 23. A copy of the invoice is attached. Motion to pay Brown and Caldwell for work performed September 29th, 23 through October 26th, 23 in the amount of $8,007.75. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions on this? Comments? Roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seibert,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groth,
Yes.
Pottershell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Carried.
Item E, an invoice from the Nebraska Masonette for the annual York 2W Weather Station Maintenance Agreement was received for the period January 1st, 24 to December 31st of 24 in the amount of $3,000. Staff noted they are looking at expanding the Masonette project to a weather station every 15 miles. The legislature is working on a bill that will support this effort along with funds from Nebraska Forest Service and Missouri River Basin. Motion to pay the University of Nebraska Lincoln for maintenance agreement in the amount of $3,000. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Oh, who had the second? Oh, Richard did. Any questions on this? Comments? Oh, Doug.
How many times do they come out and maintain them? Just once a year?
I'm not sure what their maintenance schedule is. One, if there's any issues, they come out. But yeah, I think they actually come out a couple times a year and check things over. I'm not 100% sure on that. So
I'm just curious, how big is this weather station?
how big is it?
Yeah.
This one here is one of the smaller ones. It like in like what, about the 10 by 10 or 20 by 20 fence. It's out in recharge is where it's at. It just, I mean, it don't consist of much other than the wind and temperature, rainfall bucket. I think that's all this one has out here, because it's just the basic unit.
3,000 is a lot of money just for something like that, but I'm just looking at that.
I mean, there's ET, I think, involved in it too. So there are several. Yeah. So there's, you know, it performs a lot of functions.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groves,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item F, one Chemigation Incentive Cost Share Assistance Program application has been approved for final payment totaling $1,000. A list is attached. Motion to make cost share payment for one Chemigation Incentive Assistance as reviewed by the committee in the amount of $1,000. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
second,
Questions on this, comments? Roll call.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
No.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groves,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried 16-1.
Item G, 2 invoices were received for Klein sale and service for watermark moisture sensors and data loggers for resale totaling $48,875. These were purchased in preparation for Zone 4 Phase 2 area. Motion to pay Klein sales and service for resale material in the amount of $48,875. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move. Second.
Any questions on this, comments? Roll call.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groves,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item H, an invoice was received from Olson on work completed by ESA through October 7th, 23 in the amount of $9,110.74. This project with Olson is nearing completion and we are now working directly with ESA. Motion to pay Olson for work completed through October 7th of 23 in the amount of $9,110.74 on the project number 09019-16170. Motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes, Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Groves,
Yes.
Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item I, the committee reviewed the irrigated acres certification for 17 parcels totaling 13,662 acres, yielding an increase in irrigated acres of 258. The total irrigated acres for the district is 1,248,183.05 acres. The committee also reviewed the acre changes to 5 wetland parcels, yielding a decrease of wetland acres of 172.07 acres. Motion to certify the acre changes as presented to the committee. This motion carries 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second. Questions on this? Comments? Roll call.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item 3, 3 landowners were in violation of district rules and regulations for failing to submit their phase 3 irrigation water samples have been received. Motion to lift the order of cease and desist on 2 R Farms, Andrew Tomes and Lyle Hamming. This motion carries 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Any questions on this? Comments? Yes, Richard.
Just correction, it's Lyle Hamling. I just didn't pronounce or spell his name right, I don't believe.
Oh,
Not that it matters. but-
okay, there should be an L in there. maybe.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
There were 7 orders of cease and desist for failing to complete the required training and 5 remaining orders of cease and desist for failure to submit their phase 2 and 3 reporting forms. Last item under rules enforcement was water use reporting. 79% of the producers have submitted, 69% of the wells needed reported. Item K, groundwater quality management area. Pie chart of the nitrate results for zone 5, phase 3 was provided to the committee along with a spreadsheet of the last 3 years of domestic nitrate sampling results, which is attached. Staff is in the process of updating the district groundwater quality management area action plan. A draft copy will be emailed once the edits are completed. According to the action plan, every 5 years, the district will hold an advisory committee meeting to provide input on an action plan. Staff is in the process of identifying the advisory committee. In order to get the plan, get the most from the advisory committee, the staff is requesting a facilitator to be hired. JEO was contacted to provide a scope of services to facilitate an advisory committee meeting. JEO's quote would include preparation for the meeting, facilitating the meeting, providing a report after the meeting in the amount not to exceed $13,450. And that is attached. Motion to accept JEO's scope of services project number 231954 for professional facilitation services in the amount not to exceed $13,450. This motion carries 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions on this? Comments? Roll call.
Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item L, SCAL demonstration plots. South Central Ag Lab provided an irrigation demonstration project scope to demonstrate different technologies of managing irrigation applications. This project will be in partnership with the Little Big Blue NRD. The site rental rate is $750 per acre for a 5-acre plot plus $25 an hour if a technician assists with the project. Motion to proceed with the irrigation demonstration project at South Central Ag Lab as outlined. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions? Comments? Roll call.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Powder Shell,
Yes.
Keener.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nuce.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item M, Zone 8 monitoring well. 2 bids were received for the construction of 3 monitoring wells in Zone 8. Charles Sargent Irrigation in the amount of $66,469 and Dowie Drilling in the amount of $79,510, or with half horsepower pumps and $82,375 with 3/4 horse pumps. It was noted that Charles Sargent bid included 6 pumps, 3 1/2 horsepower pumps and 3 3/4 horsepower pumps, where only the total of 3 pumps are needed. Motion to accept Charles Sargent bid with a not to exceed 60,000. This motion carried 6 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second. Any questions on this? Comments? Yes. Go ahead.
Just curiosity, wasn't there 3 bids on that? Weren't there 3 bidders? Or there was just 2
There's
bids?
just the 2 bids.
Oh, 2 bids and one of them had.
Yeah, the one showed there was, the Downies give 2 different prices. They broke theirs out for the either 3 half-inch or half-horse pumps or 3 3/4 horse pumps, where Sargent, they bid for 6 pumps.
Okay, thank you.
John.
Have we talked to Sergeant since last week?
No, I
To make
I
sure
tried
that-
to catch Jonathan and I've missed him, so I'm sure they're not gonna have a problem with seeing that they overbid by what they did, so. Cause that total, if you go with the 3/4 horse, that's like 58,000 something, so the 60 will cover that. Yeah, right.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Powder Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nuce.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird.
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Rule 5, there was a discussion on certified irrigated acres, which are converted to renewable energy or industrial sites. The committee proposed adding language to Rule 5, Chapter 15, allocation to agricultural users under Section 01, which will read 1.01 certified acres that have been converted to renewable energy sites or to industrial sites shall be ineligible for and prohibited from pooling. Motion to add language to Rule 5, Chapter 15 to address when certified acres are converted to renewable energy sites or industrial sites for the purpose of a hearing. This motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
second.
Any questions or comments on this?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead. Kendall.
in the grand scheme of things, you know, when they're technically taking them acres out of production and not using water, you know, even if this was to become a common thing and we had like 10 or 15,000 acres taken out of production, it actually like reduce the chances of going into an allocation or anything. I don't know, just something to bring up in the sense of, does it have major relevance or not?
If those wells in that area would still be measured. Which they probably would be if there's wells that are now being measured, and if they keep measuring them. Yes, would help.
I mean, the area around them,
Yeah.
obviously have
Yeah.
less water
Yeah.
pulled from it in general.
Yeah.
That was just
It-
something I was thinking about related to the rule, you know, I would say in general, it's only relevant 1 out of 3 years in a allocation setup. And that's if we're in an allocation, and it actually limit the chances of that just because you'd be using less water on those acres. Just a thought. So,
Yeah, it would be a very, very small, tiny percentage of the whole district, but yeah. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Rhodes,
No.
Marshall,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
no,
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
That carried 15-2.
So with that, since that carried, that means that we'll probably have a hearing on it and, sometime, hopefully this winter. And after the hearing, you know, we can decide, you know, if we're gonna go ahead with it. I mean, this didn't put it in stone yet, so it has to go through the hearing process. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Kendall.
Item 2 of that was there was continued discussion on possible changes to phase requirements, and that'll just be continued discussion. That's no action. Other no action items or well permit summary, which that is attached if you want to take a look at. K Junction solar discussion had nothing significant, and there was no additional business, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Matthew.
I had a question from somebody on with the K Junction Solar. Somebody asked me, and I had to explain to them, they were asking about the water rights and all that. And I was like, well, transferring, right? They cannot, we would have to approve the transfer.
Right.
But then they asked, what would happen if they took that water and say at that site and then sold it? Would that still be considered transferring of water?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get an answer.
Technically, you can't sell water in the state of Nebraska.
All right, that's,
Yeah,
okay, that's, I was just a question I got from.
It's like,
Well,
like that state
in the
statute.
central plat, you can sell water right,
yes.
but right now. in
That's
our-
surface, though.
Yeah, but we don't have. Water right transfer in our area right now, so it wouldn't be.
His question was, what happens if they bottled that water and took it to Omaha? That's, it's like, I'd ask.
Well, I don't know what the nitrates are there, but if the nitrates are high, they won't bottle it, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, so, okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on with the projects and program committee report. Richard.
Okay, Project and Programs Committee met Thursday, December 14th at the NRD office in York at 11:30. Those present committee members, Paul Bethune, Anthony Bohati, myself, Bill Keener, Mike Nuss, Matt Perry, Paul Weiss, Lynn Yates, the board chairman, and then other staff members and directors as listed below. Action items, land treatment program. There were 5 new land treatment projects. The committee reviewed the land treatment program fundings for the past 2 years. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $741.25 for 2 completed NRD land treatment projects as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. The motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Questions on this, comments?
Kendall, is that you?
Yes, Kendall seconded. Roll call.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Potter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson. Gone. Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff. He's gone.
He stepped out.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Nebraska Buffer Strip Program. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $2,978.24 for 4 second quarter Nebraska Buffer Strip Program contracts as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 8 yes, 0 no. I so move.
Second. Is there any questions or comments? Larry, if you're gonna have a discussion back there, yeah, step out, please. Okay. Okay, is there any questions or comments on the motion? Roll call.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Potter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson, absent. Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff, absent. Richard
Yes.
and Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Village of Bee Pine Street Improvement Project. The Village of Bee submitted a payment request for the Pine Street Improvement Project. The NRD has a cost share agreement with the village to pay 25% not to exceed 25,000 for the cost of the Pine Street Improvement Project. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $22,571.25, which is 25% of the total work completed on the Pine Street Improvement Project as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions on this, comments? Roll call.
Gross,
Yes.
Potter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson. Gone. Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff is absent. Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Oxbow Trail Recreation Area Supply Well Update and Payment Request. Broken Arrow Excavating has completed the well pad construction. Broken Arrow will return when the well pipe installation has been completed to install the membrane and crushed rock. Rio Fencing will then install the chain link fence. Butler County Public Power District has completed the power line to the fence line near the well. Staff plans to start the well when installation has been completed, even prior to completion of the fencing due to the low lake levels. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $11,871.04 to Butler Public Power District for installing the 3-phase power line to the supply well at Oxbow Trail as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. Motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Questions on this or comments? Roll call.
Potter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Smith Creek Picnic Shelter. The NRD has ordered a new Cedar Forest Products 24x28 picnic shelter to replace the old existing picnic shelter at Smith Creek Recreation Area. Dostal Construction will install the new shelter. ABC Creative submitted a request for 50% of the materials for their shelter upon ordering. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve a partial payment of $27,466.50 to ABC Creative for half of the cost for materials of the Cedar Forest Products Picnic Shelter of Smith Creek Rec Area as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roger.
Yeah, cause we paid other people half before we received it.
On the picnic shelters, most of them came with the big projects when we're doing the whole recreation area, so I'm not sure on that. We have run into other contracts where people want kind of even Butler Public Power requests that we pay for it before they start the work. And by the time I kind of talked to them about it, they had started. I mean, they knew we'd pay.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Keener.
Nope.
Miller.
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Peterson, out. Seibert.
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss.
No.
Bethune.
Yes.
Anthony.
No.
Jeff is out.
Yeah.
Richard.
No.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross.
No.
Pottershell. Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried 10-5.
Okay. Lake Hastings Water Quality Management Plan Update and Payment Request. JEO Consulting held a stakeholder meeting to discuss rec ideas and priorities for Lake Hastings on November 29th. The Upper Big Blue NRD has an agreement with JEO Consulting for this work. The JEO cost for October 21st through November 24th are $15,626.33 and will be split between NDEE at 60%, the Upper Big Blue, the lower Blue NRD, and the City of Hastings. The Upper Big Blue NRD will invoice NDEE, LBN, NRD, and the City of Hastings quarterly for these costs. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $15,626.33 to JEO Consulting Group for work completed on the Lake Hastings Watershed Plan from October 21st to November 24th as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. Motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second. Questions? Comments? Roll call.
Miller.
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Peterson is out. Seibert.
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss.
Yes.
Bethune.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Jeff is out. Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross.
Yes.
Pottershell.
Yeah.
Keener.
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Hazard mitigation plan update payment request. The Upper Big Blue NRD received a JEO invoice for cost from October 21st to November 17th for $4,107.60. The cost will be shared by the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency 75% in the Upper Big Blue NRD, Seward County, York County, and Hamilton County, each 6.25%. The Upper Big Blue NRD will voice these costs to the other agencies quarterly. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD approve payment of $4,107.60 to JEO Consulting Group for work completed on the Upper Big Blue NRD multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update from October 21st through November 17th as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second. Questions? Comments? Roll call.
News.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson is out. Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Wise,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff is out. Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Ottershell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Motion carried.
Recharge Lake Water Quality Improvement Study. Staff received 3 proposals for the Recharge Lake Water Quality Study on December 12, 2023. All 3 proposals were quality proposals, and the staff would like the board's input on the selection of the proposals. Copies of the request for proposals and copies of each proposal were distributed to all attending board members. Motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD review proposals on the Recharge Lake Water Quality Improvement Study from Houston Engineering JEO Consulting and FDR Flatwater Group for discussion and selection at the December 21st board meeting as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, but since committee did not act really on this, selecting one, we need to have some discussion on that. And it was in that handout that was at committee, these 3 proposals, I'm gonna call them. Yeah, I guess that's what they are. So, yes. I'm gonna turn that over to Jack.
We're it's a quick study to look at methods to improve the water quality at Recharge Lake. And we kind of limited to the property that the entity owns. So they're gonna be looking at stuff besides our current stuff with the water quality management plan to have upstream landowners clear up some of their procedures, but this will be to look at property around the lake, ways we can improve the water quality in the lake, to improve the fishery.
Well, I mean, don't you people have degrees? I mean, why do we always have to have a study?
This is gonna be a high level study to make recommendations for the board to look at how to proceed. I mean,
I can't understand why you people can't. You're smart enough and got the degrees so that you can tell if it needs to be dredged or whatever needs to be done. Why do we need to pay some of the people that JEO is that kind of money or whoever, when you have got a general idea of what needs to be done?
the staff, they propose, each one of these proposals have people that do these, like, fishery improvements and everything. That's all they work on. They don't do on picnic shelters or RV pads, or that's what their specialties are. And that's why we want those type of people to look at where's the best things the NRD should be doing to clean up this lake.
I mean, Paul, we could say, okay, yeah, let's put in a sediment basin west of the road above recharge, and then let's go out and we can do some dredging and do some bathymetric stuff. But maybe there's something that we're not thinking about. You know, beyond the traditional, here's the sediment basin or a sediment trap basin and dredging. Maybe there's something that's been done somewhere else that we don't know.
I guess we don't have any civil engineers on staff, do we?
Yes, I'm a
We,
civil
you're a civil
engineer.
engineer, okay. But by yourself with that, but you do a multitude of things, right? So I guess from a standpoint of that, I guess answering Paul's question, to me, there's a lot that goes into that, upstream, downstream, all that. So,
One example, just in a couple of their proposals, not only they look at sediment removal, but what areas of lake should be first priority for removing sediment. Another thing, at least two of them talk about sediment spoil, what to do with the sediment, where we're gonna haul it to. And, there's, wetland type projects that can add above the reservoir that help. There's things like that. I mean, when it was budget time, just with my knowledge, I suggest it would help to dig out these pools above the bridges, like for example, at Pioneer Trails and Recharge, to make room for sediment that's gonna keep coming in there, That's just a simple method that I thought of, but I haven't sat down and looked at it. Their proposals go anywhere from improving the bank access to keep the banks from eroding away, sediment removal. Some of them talk about deepening the lake, if you can deepen the lake to create room for future sediment, but it improves the water quality if you have a deeper lake where the fish aren't stirring up all the sediment in the bottom of the lake. They were all three very good proposals. It's tough, and they're all very qualified engineering firms. Just a couple references I checked. I talked with Scott Nelson from the Little Blue NRD. Flatwater Group that did a study on Iron Horse Trail Rehabilitation Project. They thought they did excellent work and called them kind of a leader in lake restoration projects. I talked to a Game and Parks employee called Tony Barada, that Houston Engineering had done a study for Victoria Springs Lake Water Quality Investigation Study. Now, this was a 2-year study. Both these studies were a little longer than what we wanted. When we talked about taking a quick look at this, we gave them a timetable to have this study completed by May. My opinion is there may be some more study, but this study will give the board enough information to go, this is the direction we want to go. If they wanted to construct something, there'll be some more work to do by the engineering firm, but it'll give you guys some ideas. The study will give you ideas on what should be looked at, so.
So was the.
Yes, Roger.
Jack, so after you saying that, I mean, we got less than $1,000 difference in these bids.
Right.
Is there one of these that you like better than the other cause we're looking at a pretty big project here down the road. Is there one of these that you prefer to go with other than low bid? Cause if we're looking at doing a pretty big project here, we better make sure we're going with the right outfit to try to get the best bang for the buck to start out with.
Yeah, I'd say with the closest of the bids, we told them a kind of a target value of 30,000 is what we put in the budget for this study. And like I said, all of them came within 34 to 35,000. So they're basically about the same price. We also put in our proposal that 40% of the consideration would be due to cost. So that wasn't the only thing we would choose on.
I understand that, but I say, is there one of these outfits that you have more confidence in than the other?
That's what's really rough. Marie and I both reviewed them, and we thought we can't go wrong with any one of the three. Now, JO, we've done a lot of things with. They might have an advantage of this because they've done the water quality management plan above the lake. But all three I've got kind of glowing recommendations on all three. So it's kind of tough to pick one.
Just pull a number out of the hat.
Well, we gave them that target figure and, of 30,000. That's just what we budgeted for. And their cost estimates, I think the lowest was 34,080 and tallest was 35,000. So they were all about the same. They all came up with the same thing. And in this Flatwater Group and Houston and JO for that matter have done a lot of quality work on water quality improvements, lake restoration projects. It's kind of some of their expertise. The Game and Parks guy from Houston said that project was done very well. They did have some very costly type measures that were recommended that they really couldn't afford, but they looked at them. Scott Nelson from Little Blue, he said the Game and Parks called this Iron Horse Rehabilitation Project kind of a Cadillac of restoration projects. So that's kind of a glowing recommendation. So. And if you look in their proposal, they list all their staff that'll be working on, all of them are very well qualified.
Flatwater
Out of Lincoln. And the project they did with the Little Blue NRD was back when Tom Riley, who's the DNR director, was in charge of Flatwater. But they, Scott Nell said they'd have no problem hiring them for a future project.
Richard, did you have another question?
Roger pretty much
Okay,
asked the same
okay.
question I was gonna
Okay,
ask.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
did.
pass
That's
over
fine.
you, you know, so, okay.
I mean, I don't.
It's
My-
very tough to pick. Marie, did you have any recommendation? I mean, all three are very good.
My thought, just, you mentioned Flatwater twice already. I just, somebody different and from Lincoln, and just my reasoning that.
And I think a lot of the staff is from
Yes.
Houston's in Iowa, but
Second.
Hello, who made the motion?
I did.
Richard did it, okay. Okay, and, so what was your motion? I didn't hear it, I'm
My
sorry.
motion was to accept the Flatwater Group's
Okay.
proposal.
Okay, and then Bill had the second. So is there any other? John? You have both hands up, so.
Do we not have a motion on the floor?
No.
Has to be amended. Has to be.
Yeah,
amended,
this
yes.
should be an amendment,
Yeah.
which is no problem.
Okay.
Just make an amendment.
All right. Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, and the amendment is to add flat water in there, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments on the amendment?
Can we have the amendment read quick before we vote on it?
Yes, that would be great.
To accept the Flatwater Group proposal, I didn't know, do you wanna put the dollar there, that 35,000 in there, or just?
I would say not to exceed.
Yeah.
Not to exceed, yeah.
Okay, so the motion is for discussion and selection. So the only thing we didn't have in there was which group, so we have that now. Yeah. Is there any other questions or comments on the amendment to the motion by adding Flatwater Group in there? John, oh, okay. Roll call.
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Havershell,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Newt,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Amendment carried.
Okay, now we have the motion with the addition of selecting Flatwater. So, questions or comments? John?
I just think the amendment should replace the motion. I mean, we still gotta vote on it, but that's.
Cause you're gonna have to strike a lot of language.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you like to see then?
Amendment.
Call the replacement motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
The amendment replaces.
okay. Okay, So that's what we'll be voting on then. So, thank you, John. Any more discussion or anything? It's basically going ahead with this and selecting a firm. Not roll call.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seaver,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss. Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Ottershell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Noose,
Yes.
Addie.
Yes.
There's a pass, wish to vote.
Vote no.
Yates,
Yes, but I do want to mention something, but did we put the amount in there not to exceed? Okay, okay. That's.
Motion
one double
carried.
check on that.
Okay. Consideration of stream gauging locations. NRD staff has been working with the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources to add a stream gauging site at the Upper Big Blue NRD. The NRD is budgeting funds to add one gauging station in fiscal year 2024. DNR has proposed adding 2 new stream gauging sites with the NRD cost sharing for 50% of each site, and the Department of Natural Resources paying the other 50%. Equipment for each site has been estimated at $15,000, and annual operation and maintenance costs for each site was estimated at $6,000. And it come to the attention after the board meeting, or after we sent this from the committee, that the $6,000 is not correct. It's actually $11,900. So I guess in the motion, we'll just replace the 6,000 with 11,900. So the motion that the Upper Big Blue NRD enter a cost share agreement with the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources for 2 new stream gauging sites, one on the North Fork of the Big Blue River near Staplehurst, and on the West Fork of the Blue River near Grafton, which includes the NRD obligation of $15,000 for stream gauging equipment cost and an annual operation of maintenance fee of the corrected amount of $11,900 as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee. That motion carried 7 yes, 1 no, and I so move.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Kendall.
Does anyone know what the maintenance and operation is every year? Why it's $11,000?
I can give you, they sent us a breakdown on this correction. They have, it's like 200 hours of salary per site. And there's also 2,800 miles or for mileage, and that would include, that's enough for 14 trips out to the site during the year. It sends data out, but they have to check those gauging sites too. They take they look at the probably a staff gauge and make sure everything's reading correctly. So. And that's more in line of what I've heard before was, I think the USGS, and not probably 15 years ago, they asked for 13,000 per year for the maintenance and checking out on these gauging sites. And I didn't catch this one because Jeremy Gailey thought what he did was he only took the O&M of one site. And when we're cost sharing them too, he'd only taken one site. That's why he thought it was like 12,000, so each would pay 6. Well, for two gauging sites, 12,000 times 2. And so it's our portion, 50% share would be basically 2 times 6,000. He narrowed it down to 11,900. But they've got, costs for cones and signs and traffic vests and stuff for, their $6 a year, you know what I mean? And they break it down pretty detailed. If you want to see that, I can sure give you a copy of that.
Oh. What is this gonna tell? What's this supposed to tell us then? What these gauges?
It'll give us flow data for all year. A lot of this is used for surface water right administration. That's kind of why they wanted that one up, especially up by Seward. Our water quality management plan identified, gosh, how many sites was it, Bree? Probably about 6.
Yeah, there were 6 sites as part of the water quality management planning effort that were identified as being beneficial data. And then there was also through the model, then Brown and Caldwell also suggested stream gauges, additional stream gauges in the basin to help with calibration and data to go into the model.
And basically,
Go ahead.
basically the source of people doing this is the USGS or the Department of Natural Resources. And I haven't, I guess I have no facts, but I'm assuming USGS was a lot higher than the DNR.
Yeah, USGS, theirs was 22,000 for the equipment and it was 15,000 a year for maintenance.
Oh,
But they were capturing a lot of other stuff that DNR, a lot more data than what DNR was capturing.
Paul, in your handout, there's a picture of the proposed and the ones they are there now, so. Is there a question? Bill?
We'll have to renew this every year, just like the Mesnet. And I'm sure they'll go up in price every year.
They're anticipating, they got like a 3% increase per year on the O&M once the equipment cost is done, when we pay it, but. And that's their annual estimated maintenance, but I'm assuming it's gonna be pretty close.
I would like to see this motion clarified. I don't know if it requires an amendment or just a couple of words of $15,000 each and $11,900 each.
Well, yeah, I was wondering about that too, because,
In the discussion up there, it talks about per site.
yeah, times 2, but it doesn't really say that, yeah. Yeah, but here. Okay.
I think that would do it, just add each on it.
Oh, 15,000 for each stream gauge, equipment cost and maintenance fee, like each of the 11,900.
$11,900.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our obligation will be 50% of those costs of 2 gauges, so, yeah.
Is that okay with the motion if we put that in there? In the second?
Well, should that
Yes.
50% be in there then too?
Yeah, especially if we put the each, I think maybe the 50% would be good to have in there.
Okay.
I'll make sure you guys understand what we're signing up for.
Did Doug make the motion?
I did.
Rich
I'm-
made it, okay.
I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you're,
I'm
is that
fine.
okay?
Yes,
with-
sir.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, that's right.
Dave can't make motions. Can you?
Yeah. Okay. Does everybody understand the motion now?
No, go ahead and read it.
Okay.
I just
Nancy,
wanna
would you
clarify
please
something.
do that, or?
It's 50% for each site, correct? We're contracting, we're agreeing to do both the sites, so it's 50% for each site.
Yes, that's how they wrote it.
Okay. All right. So the motion would read that the Upper Big Blue NRD enter into a cost share agreement with the Nebraska Department of Natural Resources for 2 new stream gauging sites, one on the North Fork of the Big Blue River near Staplehurst, and one on the West Fork of the Blue River near Grafton, which includes an NRD obligation of 15,000 for each stream gauging equipment costs and an annual operation and maintenance fee of $11,900 each, to be split 50% each as recommended by staff and reviewed by the committee.
Question, Lynn.
Yeah. And that would basically be half of the total because there's two of them.
We,
Roger.
Richard, or Jack, they're not splitting the 11,900, they're only splitting the 15,000, aren't they?
no, they're doing, they're
doing
covering the
half of the
cost.
maintenance,
That
too?
11.9 is the maintenance, operation maintenance of one site. So the actual cost will be double that. Our obligation is half of two sites, which is 11.9. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's kind of confusing when we talk about it, but we're getting, basically, we were talking with them about adding a site, and they're gonna add another site, and they kind of want us involved. And the good thing, like Marie and I talked, they can't just drop that other site. Because of our agreements in place, we're talking about two sites through our agreement.
Well, the way that she just read that, she said 50% of 11,900.
Yeah.
And that isn't right.
She put the total,
It's,
Okay,
put the total of like 30,000 each, and then say we're gonna split it 50, it's split 50% with DNR.
is 100
times two.
times two.
Yeah,
Right.
23.
Yeah.
and 15 is,
Yeah.
the equipment cost is double of 15, but our obligation is 15.
So is everybody confused yet?
Yeah, it's,
So we need to drop off that 50% then, it sounds like.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, as long as you got each, you're good.
okay. Okay. So is there any other questions or comments? Everything is understood, the correction to the motion or the change to the motion, I'm gonna say. Okay, roll call.
Peterson.
Yes.
Seaver.
Yes.
Bailey. Yes. Wise.
No.
Bethune.
No.
Anthony.
No.
Jeff.
No.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross.
No.
Honorshell.
Yes.
Gainer.
No.
Miller.
Yes.
News.
Yes.
Addie.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Yates.
No.
Discussion and no action items. Publication and legal notice of the meeting. New York News Times, Open Meeting Act posted at the entrance of the boardroom. Private Dams Program. Dustin Chrisman is getting the necessary signatures on the application to request reimbursement of the NRCR staff are working on the design of the two private farm dams near Sutton. Dave Hansen has a dam north of Friend. Is he deciding if he wants to proceed with fixing this dam? The committee reviewed the private dams funding program. Trees, Capitol Christmas trees. General Manager David Eigenberg attended the Christmas tree lighting ceremony at the Nebraska State Capitol hosted by Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen on Sunday, December 10th. The tree was a blue spruce from the Blues Anderson Rec area and was donated by the Upper Big Blue NRD. Langworthy Rhine-Miller Dam update. Staff sent a letter and invoice to the Jesse Langworthy Trust in late November for payment of the cost for restoring the conservation pool at Langworthy Rhine-Miller Road Dam east of Utica. Staff has not heard back from the trust, has not received payment. Have you heard anything more? Nothing. That means we might have further action coming up. You never know. Okay. Warning signs update. Blue Valley Public Safety reported that the siren equipment has been delivered and they anticipate installing the poles and sirens following the first of the year. Cleveland Electric said that there will be some digging required for running the power line to the poles. So if the ground is frozen, there may be some delays in getting the power installed. Once the power is installed, will return to the sites to test the sites. Nebraska Emergency Management Agency will inspect the installations. And if there's any other, unless there's any additional information, that is my report.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I think we ought to get a glossy 8x10 of our beloved manager and governor, put it up here on the wall so everybody can see it.
Well, it was, I guess, an honor, but to have one of our trees selected. So. And yeah, that is a pretty good picture, you know, yeah. Oh, it's in your pamphlet, so you know. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the executive committee report. I don't think it's gonna be
Executive
quite.
committee met at
long, so.
12:10 PM on Thursday, December 14th, 2023 at the NRD office in York. The committee members present were Yates, Keener, Dickinson, Staley, Bethane, Siebert, Bohadi, and Miller. Board Chairperson Yates informed those present that we published the legal notice of the committee meeting on December 7th, 2023 in the York News Times. Yates advised those present that the Open Meeting Act is posted by the entrance of the boardroom. Item A, payment to North Printing Company for the Blueprint newsletter. The committee reviewed an invoice from North Printing Company in the amount of $10,922.59 for the printing of the fall 2023 issue of the Blueprint newsletter. Motion to approve payment of $10,922.59 to North Printing Company for printing the fall 2023 edition of the Blueprint newsletter. The motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second. Doug did. Doug Dickinson. Questions on this? Comments? I know I've said this before, but I get a newsletter from another NRD and it's just a piece of regular newsprint, you know, it's about 2 pages long and our blueprint is a really nice one. You know, Crystal does a good job. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley. Yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Noose.
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item B, the committee reviewed an invoice from Jensen Lumber Company in the amount of $332,514 for the construction of the new storage building. Motion to approve the purchase was made on February 16th, 2023. The motion included the building cost of $332,514. Motion to approve payment to JLC Incorporated, Jensen Lumber Company in the amount of $332,514 for the construction of the new storage building. The motion carried 8 yes, 0 no, and I so move.
Second.
Questions or comments? Yes.
It's totally done.
It's done.
Oh, it's done. Yeah.
That shows you what I.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Mike?
Sorry, can we get an itemized
I can get one for you.
concrete and everything?
Yeah. I think in the original proposal, wasn't there?
Yeah,
It was broke down.
There was a schematic drawing and everything
Yeah.
was listed out. I'll get it back to you. Final, the very, very final.
Yeah.
Did they stay within the?
Yes, the building construction cost was exactly the same motion. The motion was the building specs that was provided to us in March.
Oh, but so the final bill and the quote was exactly the same. Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Big check. Roll call.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Noose,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item C, staff has contacted Tom Manning, owner of Tom's Concrete Construction, informing him of the December 15th, 2023 deadline for repair to be completed on the main driveway at the main office imposed by the board at the November board meeting. Tom informed staff that he could not complete the work by that date. Staff locally advertised the request for repair. Closing date for the bids was December 12th, 2023. To date, 3 bids have been received for the repair. B&B Construction for a cost of $4,631 and a completion date of the spring 2024. TLA Construction for a cost of $10,131.89 with an April 15th, 2024 completion date. And Bierman Contracting Incorporated with a cost of $11,900 with an estimated completion date of the spring of 2024. And the motion was to approve the bid of TLS Construction LLC in the amount of $10,131.89 for the repair of concrete in the main driveway with a completion date of April 15th, 2024. The motion carried 7 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention, and I so move.
Second.
Yeah, Doug Dickinson, I guess. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Weiss,
Yes.
Bethune,
Abstain.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Otter Shell,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Noose,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Yates.
Yes.
Carried 16-1.
Item D, 2024 NARD Congressional Conference will be held March 16th to 20th in Washington, DC. The motion was to approve out-of-state travel for any director and up to 3 staff that wish to attend the 2024 NARD Congressional Conference, which will be held March 16th through the 20th in Washington, DC. There's no board action required on that motion. The no action items were the NARD Legislative Conference. Please contact probably either Crystal or Nancy if you haven't. Try today if you intend on going. We looked at the creation of a written code of conduct for board members. And the learning sessions coming up in January will be budgeting, February will be the Vados zone, and March will be the recharge lake. Dave, you have anything on the personnel report?
You can follow along. The water resource technician has been filled by an in-house transfer from Amanda McLeod. Data specialist has been filled by a promotion of Dee Dee Novotny. We just recently hired a data assistant. Her name is Jessica.
Simons.
Simons? Okay, thank you. She will start work January the 8th. Our grant funded integrated water specialist is being advertised. Maintenance department, we have 1 open position that we're going to wait closer to spring to fill. All I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and you can see the monthly financial statements attached. A written update was provided from Steve Kelly on the Nebraska Natural Resources Commission meeting. You can see the upcoming events. I'll repeat one more time if you weren't listening. Get a hold of Nancy or Crystal for the NARD conference in January if you haven't already. The meeting adjourned at 12:30 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thanks, Bill. Oh, okay, we'll move on to the financial statement and approval bills to be paid. You should have all of that in front of you. Take a few minutes to look at it. Got any questions? Ask. Can't leave. What are you doing? Oh, some people. Did one of our pickups get damaged in a collision? Okay.
It was not a collision. It was a incident at the rec area that they backed into a hydrant. And scarred up the bottom side of it. So it was one of the newer 3/4 ton. No, that was actually the ton truck that we repaired. You will see one for next month. We had.
Shouldn't have asked.
No, we had another truck that hit a Ballard. So we have another truck that's in the shop right now being repaired. So.
It hit a what?
Ballard, a post, yeah. Cut the corner a little bit too short and yeah.
Okay. Daily basis.
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Any other questions or comments on financial and bills? Roll call.
Bethune,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Patrichelle,
Yes.
Keener,
Yes.
Miller. Gone. News,
Yes.
Addie,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Seabird,
Yes.
Staley, yes. Weiss,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
NRCS report. Hey, this is gonna get you home late now. It's gonna get you home late. But you're gonna miss wrestling practice.
Good afternoon. I'm going through engineering projects we're working on. We're working on 2 dams right now. Jack, hopefully they gave you an update. They did meet with one last week. It's a larger dam project. I'm not so certain they're gonna proceed with it, but they're still working with him on it, seeing what he wants to do there. As far as programs, we're just finishing up CSP renewals. EQIP, we've been working on that, taking applications. The cutoff was for this sign up was earlier, but with the Act Now sign up and the IRA funds, we're continuing to take applications and we're getting a number of applications continuing to come in. But we're working on the mapping and processing those with our newer mapping program. Of course, that always comes with some challenges when it's working properly and such. But along with that, we have the Act Now sign up so we can try to get funds out quicker as soon as those funds are released. I've been told we have received our funds to the state, so which is a positive. I didn't know if we'd get that until after our continuing resolution had expired. So hopefully early January, we'll start working on those. We do not have a ranking pools set up yet, so January 2nd is the date they told us that we could start working on the ranking. So hopefully those are set up and start processing further. As we go through this, there's always new processes with it, so it's learning, and we're getting through it, but it's definitely slowed us down a little bit. So we'll have local funds, we'll have our regular state fund codes, we'll have our Inflation Reduction Act funds, and then we'll have the RCPP funds that we're we're working with all four of those right now. Getting them processed as far as we can. Some of those will be in multiple fund codes and just seeing what order we allocate those and such, will come down in the near future, so. And as I said, we're still taking applications, and with the act now, we potentially may be able to take action on those this year. Versus in past years, they would have to wait until the next sign up, so what's the good? We'll see how that works out. Staffing update. Steward, last Friday was the soil cons last day. He resigned, so we have an opening in Seward now and Aurora. Those two just got advertised this week, so if anybody looking for anything, please send them my way. I'll glad to visit with them and get them the information. Along with that, I requested, even though it's not open yet, Osceola is gonna have a soil composition open. The soil con up there, its last day will be the end of the month. So I got that on the list a little bit early. So we'll have 3 coming out, and we do have the York field office soil composition filled. I don't have a date yet, but we do have a tentative offer out on that, so. That's staffing, and NRCS will be present at the NERD conference this year, so we'll be up there with you guys, so. That's all I got.
Anybody have any questions for Josh?
That was from the NRCS staffing that probably. Is there anybody there? Okay, the one guy we have is going.
I can only answer based off of hearsay from what I've heard, but we can have a conversation after if you want.
Oh, you might get hired, so just be careful, you know. Oh, yeah, I know. Okay, thank you very much, Josh. The NARD report, Paul.
Only thing I have is, Dave told me that staff is in support of increasing the retirement. So next month we will have to vote on that, and I'll have to take that recommendation to the NARD board for their vote. So keep that in mind. That's all I got, unless there's questions.
That was short and sweet. Okay, anybody have anything for Paul? Okay, the chairman's report. Once again, it's gonna be moving into election time. If the incumbents, wanna file, that date is from January 5th to February 15th. And then anybody else can file up to March 1st. And, everybody's elected by sub-district now and not by the whole district. I don't know, but if you remember, we changed that. So, I know you can get them online. I don't know if you can get them at your county courthouse. If you ask Nancy really nice, she might print you off maybe one.
I can print some out and leave them up at the front desk, like at Patty's area there. We can't fill them out for you and we can't mail them for you, but we can provide them to you.
And then they have to be notarized too, don't they? I think they have to be notarized, don't they? Your signature does, I think, yeah, okay.
Okay, I can notarize it for you.
Okay, it's just something to, and anyone, including Paul, that hasn't seen our new building back there, I'm sure one of the staff might take a couple minutes and take you back there, but if you want to see it, anybody wants to see it. So, yeah, oh, but it is a nice building. Okay, I guess we talked about conference, there was an email that I got that you put the operating policy on. Did somebody request or had a question on something?
Yeah, it came from that side of the room during a committee meeting that if we were going to talk about the board code of conduct, a lot of those are already covered in the operating policy. Was it Mike? Was it you that requested? I don't know. Somebody was it
Okay.
Paul And
Okay.
when I got back to my office on Thursday afternoon, I just sent it out to everybody.
Yeah, everybody should have we should have a copy of that. But, I know on that code of conduct, the one from the Papio, there was a lot of stuff in there as far as hearings and stuff, but we already have a bunch of that in our operating policies, so, okay. And I guess that's really all that I have. I guess, everybody have a good holiday, enjoy your family and be safe. But one more thing we need, and that is a motion to adjourn. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yep, that passed. We are adjourned. Okay.